Some people praise Ann Taylor. Others beg for her to be removed because she lacks skills. What makes a great attorney is not just knowledge of black-letter law, but when to use it. Ultimately, it's legal strategy that wins, and the ultimate goal is winning. July 2025, the world believed the Idaho 4 case was finally over. Bryan Kohberger entered a surprise guilty plea and accepted 4 consecutive life sentences. The book was closed, or so we thought. Welcome to a comprehensive look at the secret legal war of 2026. We are now witnessing a structural crisis, or is this a plan? New disclosures from the expose Broken Plea have exposed deep internal fractures within the defense team. These fractures do not just make for a gripping headline, they provide a precise legal roadmap to completely vacate the final judgment. On one side, lead counsel Ann Taylor claiming her star expert breached ethics. On the other side, Dr. Brent Turvey acting as a forensic whistleblower. In the middle, author Christopher Whitcomb exposing the data. This is an absolute breakdown of the adversarial process, or is it a planned one? The media called this internal book release a disaster. They completely missed the chess match. The public crossfire between lead counsel and their own core forensic expert creates an automatic, undeniable conflict of interest. That structural warfare guarantees an ineffective assistance of counsel anchor, rendering the underlying plea contract voidable. If a regional judge hesitates to blame counsel, they drop the independent constitutional hammer, the brand new Supreme Court mandate in Hunter v. United States. In a historic 8-1 decision, SCOTUS ruled boilerplate plea waivers are completely unenforceable if they shield an egregious error that brings the system into disrepute. Now let's look at the evidence. The crown jewel of the prosecution's case was the K-bar knife sheath. Dr. Turvey now alleges that this evidence was legally poisoned. He claims the state's chain of custody was not linear, it was retroactively constructed. Look closely at the labels. Forensic handwriting analysis suggests that a single person filled out multiple officer signatures across 4 different handling days, using the exact same pen. If this is true, the primary DNA link was a manufactured illusion. It gets deeper. The broken plea expose reveals that unknown hair was found near a victim. It did not match Bryan Kohberger. The FBI lab confirmed this. This supports a multi-attacker theory, a theory that was completely sidelined before the plea. Why is this coming out now? Enter the Trojan horse strategy. Ann Taylor was completely handcuffed by a strict court gag order. She could not expose these vulnerabilities to the media, but an independent expert breaking a private contract can. This brings us to the constitutional trap. Under the Strickland standard, a defense team must provide effective counsel. If Taylor's expert was a rogue actor, she was deficient for relying on him. If his findings were valid, she was deficient for forcing a plea instead of fighting to suppress the evidence. Either way, the defense infrastructure collapsed, or seemingly so. Now, look at the prosecution's maneuvers. In a recent interview, Mrs. Goncalves revealed a shocking truth. Right before the plea hearing, the prosecution completely ambushed the victims' families with horrific, brand new forensic details regarding specific signature marks left on her daughter. This is the core of our new argument. Under Boykin v. Alabama, a guilty plea must be entered knowingly and voluntarily. If the state dropped an 11th hour forensic bomb, the factual record was incomplete. You cannot make a voluntary life or death decision while blindfolded by your own prosecutors. The prosecution's narrative relies entirely on a lone actor, but the forensic data points to a 75% probability of multiple attackers. The defense failed to use the state's impossible timeline to counter the sudden signature marks ambush. This directly compromised the court. Judge Hippler accepted the 2025 plea and handed down consecutive life sentences based on a degraded defense presentation. Under constitutional law, a sentence based on unverified, unlitigated information violates due process. So, what is the next step? The appellate team is demanding a full evidentiary hearing. The goal is simple: force the state to hand over the raw electronic computer logs from the state forensic laboratory. Once we have established structural fraud under the new Supreme Court standard, the traditional criminal handcuffs are shattered. Under Idaho Code, Section 19-4901, we drop the prosecution into a strict civil sandbox. The state's protective orders evaporate. We are no longer pleading for discovery. We are demanding an immediate evidentiary hearing. This dual pincer defense attack establishes absolute good cause under a Section 4907 motion. They bypassed the prosecutor's desk entirely. They issued direct civil subpoenas straight to the IT custodians for the raw, millisecond-accurate server transaction logs. When the back-end database trails do not match the state's paper timeline, the plea gets vacated. Welcome to Trial 2.0. The state will want to keep these files sealed, but the defense will argue that because broken plea has already exposed fragments to the public, keeping the rest hidden serves only one purpose: protecting the state from its own errors. The defense should argue that the 11th hour drop of graphic signature marks was not a routine disclosure. It was a tactical, psychological ambush. It was designed to induce panic, terrifying the defendant into signing a plea deal to avoid a gruesome, televised trial. That is the definition of coercion. Look at the timeline of this collapse. From the initial investigation in 2024 to the sudden signature ambush in May 2025 to the rushed plea in July, culminating in the 2026 whistleblower expose. The finality of this case was built on a foundation of sand. As these internal defense fractures are formalized in court, the state's legal vulnerability spikes. What would look like a settled permanent life sentence in 2025 is now highly unstable in 2026. Here is the appellate scorecard: voluntariness, critical violation, evidence integrity, high suppression grounds, counsel integrity, total deficiency. The needle is moving heavily towards a reversal. If the judge grants the hearing, a forensic audit of the lab's electronic metadata will occur. If the computer logs show that the evidence barcodes were generated after the defense demanded discovery, the state's core DNA link collapses entirely. Listen to the mother of one of the victims. Mrs. Goncalves explicitly stated, "They dropped it on us at the very last minute. It felt like an ambush." If the families were kept in the dark for 18 months, the defendant was operating under the exact same ignorance. The state is fighting back aggressively. They are pursuing misdemeanor charges to jail Dr. Turvey for these leaks and filing bar complaints against the legal defense team. They are desperate to stop the data dump, but the damage is done. The Sixth Amendment guarantees an adversarial testing of the state's case. When a lead attorney and a lead expert enter a state of total public warfare, the adversarial process has failed. That is a structural error. Whitcomb's book reveals even deeper issues: internal friction between local Moscow investigators and the FBI lab regarding these signature marks. The 11th hour ambush was a frantic attempt to patch up a broken investigative theory. Judge Hippler has a history of strictly protecting court integrity, even ordering a probe into prosecution leaks to Dateline NBC in 2025. The defense will leverage this history to show that the final fact-finding process was thoroughly compromised by state actors. The legal precedents are clear. Evidence is constitutionally material if its disclosures would have changed the defendant's decision to plead guilty. The sudden introduction of facial signature marks fits this definition perfectly. Looking ahead, if the PCR motion is granted this autumn, we will see the deposition of state lab technicians by October, a judicial ruling by December, and the potential seating of a brand new trial for the state of Idaho versus Koberger in early 2027. In conclusion, the narrative of an open and shut case is dead. The confluence of expert whistleblowing and a late-stage discovery ambush has shattered the finality of this conviction. The defense infrastructure has collapsed, whether by design or not. You be the judge. By Ann Taylor's brilliance or not, the legal leverage has shifted to the defense. In high-stakes litigation, public narrative is power. Ann Taylor defends her integrity. Turvey exposes the data. By forcing this conflict into the open, the defense has successfully bypassed the gag order and paved the way to an appeal. Let justice be done. Congratulations to Ann Taylor and her team.